yeah, like growing up as a kid, that's kind of where I'll start. Was really hard. Yeah, I at the starting when I was really young, we were really like well off family, like super. We were wealthy. I would have to say. My dad owned his own company. My mom worked with like the mentally handicapped, so she was like kind of like a care aide, but it was a little bit different back then. And we had a huge piece of property, and like life was good. Actually, I'll say this now because it's legal. And also, my dad grew pot when it was highly
Oh,
illegal as well. Sorry, Dad. He doesn't give a shit.
yeah.
But so, yeah, like we were pretty well off. Like we
Mm-hmm.
were, we had a nice property out in Lumby. And I would have to say, like, my brother and I, Quentin, we were pretty spoiled in a comfortable way. And my parents got into drugs, and that's when everything really started to change. And it was not, it was partying, it was heavy stuff. So, and I remember like starting to notice like changes within them, and like always being dropped off at like sitters' houses, and or them always like kind of hiding in the room and just not being present. And it just started getting worse and worse until they split up, and my dad had moved away, and then my mom was, I guess, a single parent.
How old were you at that point?
I was 11.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
but it was years leading up to
Mm-hmm.
that. Yeah. So and my dad was physically and mentally abusive too, like which I'm okay to talk about now. Before, I wasn't okay to talk about it because I felt a lot of like shame and guilt around it, but he was very like very physically and mentally abusive. And so so we started living with my mom and my nana, my brother and I. He's 7 years younger than me. So, and then my mom really took a turn for the worse. So she would be like missing for days at a time. We would be like getting evicted from our homes, and we wouldn't have a lot of food in the fridge. Like it was really, really bad. So I had to really step up in a lot of ways and like, get my brother ready for school, pack his lunch, that kind of stuff. And I love my mom. Me and her have the best relationship now, and she's clean and she's really cleaned up her life. But we went through a lot of hell, a lot of neglect. She wasn't there. She couldn't even be there for us mentally. Yeah, so it was tough. There was a lot of hard times, Christmases. It was just, she was always like worried about money. We lived in poverty. She was on welfare. I remember being super embarrassed, even getting like driven to school in like in the vehicle that she was driving. Like I was just super embarrassed all the time, and just like, and when she was present and there, like she was in and out of rehab as well, but when she was present and she was there, she's very loving, most loving and beautiful lady, just a very, very, very sick lady as well, right? So, and it's interesting too because it's like she didn't have the best upbringing growing up as a kid as well, right? So she was in boarding schools. She went through a really tough time as well. She was molested as a child. There was a lot. And it was just like hurt coming from her mom, going to her, and then now it was being passed on to me. And that's the whole thing of
Generational trauma.
totally, and ancestral, right? It's so so yeah, it was tough to see. Like I moved out when I was 15, and my brother was super upset that I moved out because I was like that little thread that was like holding mom together in a sense, but I couldn't handle it anymore. I was so sick of it. She'd go missing for like 3 days, and we would just be at home. I wouldn't know where she was, couldn't get a hold of her. Like I went through so much. Like I remember I can still even hear her answering machine, like calling it so many times and leaving her messages like, "Mom, please come home," all this other stuff. And like, luckily my Nana was around. She lived like in a suite below us at one point, and then she lived with us as well. But like, there was only so much that she could do as well. And yeah, I was just so sick of it. And then like I started getting into alcohol. I started partying and doing drugs as well, right? Because it was like that's how I was like numbing what was happening. It was happening to me, like you said, the generational trauma, right? So, and then I started getting into trouble as a kid, and I dropped out of school and moved to Vancouver at 15 years old, and just like scared myself straight. Came back home, even though I knew it was dysfunctional there, I still wanted to just be at home because I really did scare myself when I moved down to Vancouver. I got mixed up into some different stuff, but when I came back home, I wanted to go back into high school and be with all my friends, and they're like, no, you can't. You dropped out in grade 9 and now you're like a year and a half behind. If you want to be let into grade 12, you have to like do, I think it was like 16 courses. And I was like, oh, so they're like, yeah. I was like, oh my God, I really fucked this up. So I ended up going into, I think it was Crossroads. Yeah, it was Crossroads in Lumbee. And there is a lady that helped me there. Her name's Linda. She actually passed away, I think it was in 2010 or 11. Loved her so much. She literally helped me. She was like, Kate, we're going to get all these courses done. You're going to get into grade 12. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. And it was so crazy because that was during the time I started like getting into vision boards and stuff. And I put on there me graduating in 2009 with all my friends. And I worked so hard day in and day out. Like I like quit like going out with friends. I like just everything. It was all about school. That's all I did. And I passed the whole 16 courses and I got let into my grade 12 year and I got to graduate with everybody. And I passed with honors and scholarships. And I was super, super proud of myself. And then kind of during high school and after, I got involved with like not so healthy boyfriends and like getting back into the party scene and, you know, doing drugs, drinking, all that kind of stuff. Right. So, I just kind of went through so many different kind of like
cycles.
Yeah. Cycles. And then just like really accomplishing something like, and then falling back into another cycle. Right. So, I definitely struggled a lot with like, just like the imposter syndrome and like self-doubt and it was like going out and having fun and getting drunk and rowdy and blacking out was normal.
Yeah.
That was normal and I was good at it. So I just kept doing it. Yeah. Right? And yeah, I could still maintain a job and do this and do that, but it was just became normal. Right? So
what were you working in what the hotel industry at that point already?
No, I was actually managing a little pizza shop in Lumbee. Oh. Yeah, so that was fun. I did like a culinary arts program right out of high school up into my level 2. So that was what I did for like college, which was really cool. I wanted to be a professional cook and Red Seal chef, sorry, not a professional cook. You know what I mean? And so I did that and then again dropped out. I like dropped out of that because I was like, nope, this is not what I want to do. Like I'd rather go do this and have fun and whatever else. And then after that, it was in 2010 and I was living in Lumbee and like I had broken up with this guy who was like super, super abusive. But anyways, I split up with him and I said to my best friend, who's still my really, really good friend, Dave Cossey, and I was like, do you want to move to Kelowna? He's like, yeah, sure. I'm like, okay, let's move in there. Like, let's move like January, like have a fresh start. He's like, okay, let's fucking do it. So I'm like, sweet. So we went and looked for a house there for a couple months, found it, moved there. His girlfriend moved with us too, Pri. She's a friend of mine as well. And we moved down to Kelowna and we're like, okay, then I was like, okay, start applying for jobs, doing this, doing that. And I got hired at Lake Okanagan Resort. So that's where I started getting into the hotel industry.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny because I was a room attendant there first. And then they were like, we could really use you at the front desk. Like, we think you'd be really great at the front desk. I'm like, sweet, I don't want to scrub toilets anymore. Let's fucking go. Like, yay, right? Like, they're like, you're way too like pretty to be like scrubbing toilets and stuff. I'm like, oh, thanks, right? So like, so I went to the front desk, and then I started getting like a little bit more into like competitive room sales and selling packages and all that kind of stuff. And like, it was awesome. I loved it. And then I met Adam, which was Darius's father, and then, yeah, we were together for a couple of years, and then I got pregnant, and I was like, okay, we're having a baby now. It was just like boom, 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 just one thing after another, right? So, and yeah, I would have to say having Darius definitely changed a huge part of my life, big time. But even though having him in my life and having him, I still had old habits. Right. So I was still really indulging into drinking, all that kind of stuff. And like, I even hate to say this, but it's not like I would be doing it around my kid. But yeah, I was still involved into the party scene as well. Right. So it's like, hey, mom, can you watch Darius? Or, you know, can you do this or whatever else? Yeah. So we can go out on the weekend. Like, it was still like, that was just right. And yeah. And then Adam and I ended up splitting up after he was born, about a year after he was born. And then I was just a single mom for about, I'm going to say 2014. I think he fully came back in his life 2017. So, yeah. And then like actually half and half 2018. So I was on my own for quite a bit. Adam went through his own struggles and stuff like that, and with obviously substance abuse, and was in and out of rehab and stuff. And he cleaned up his life. Super proud of him. In a lot of ways, he's an amazing father. But yeah, it was like being a single parent, having that pressure, still having bad habits, and just not really knowing who I was. Because I'd just been through like so much turmoil in my life, and growing up in chaos and dysfunction, and not having support. You know what I mean? Like, I just wasn't taught those basic fundamentals of life, I guess is the best thing to describe it. So then that's when I find that like, that's when the huge healing started to really.
Did you have one thing that sparked that, or was it just like by yourself, or is it an event or something?
I started seeing my mom in me.
Oh,
and I love her. I love her so much. But I started to notice like, you know, I would go out on the weekend, and I would go and indulge and party and do this and whatever else. And then Sunday would come, and I would just be useless. I just want to sleep all day, and just like, you know, and Darius would be like coming back to me, or whatever else, and he would just be like, Mom, why are you sleeping all day? Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's really hard for me to even admit that, but I don't even give a shit, because I'm just authentic, and this is me, and this is my story. But that's what was really breaking the camel's back there, was like, I remember my mom doing that, like sleeping all day, not being present, being irritable, being like sad, emotional. Like, I remember it so well. And I was like, I'm repeating it. I'm repeating exactly what I hated when I was a child. And my mom wasn't there for me, or my brother, right? And I was like, I need to figure something out. I need to be better. And I just like, and there was many other things that made me feel that I hit rock bottom. Everyone has a different rock bottom though, right? Yeah. It's like somebody's worst pain could be another person's minor pain.
Oh yeah.
Like, you could have someone that broke their leg, or you could have someone that had the baddest paper cut. You know what I mean? We can't really, we don't know what someone's worst is. But yeah, it was just really realizing the patterns within myself, the way I was headed, and also just like I felt like every time I made those bad decisions and was like out and partying and doing those type of things, I took a little piece of my soul every time. And I was just like, what am I doing? Like, I know I'm meant for more than this, right? And this was even a part of this was even when I was in car sales too, especially because I was making money and I was like, you know, Adam had Darius 50-50 and I was like, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to spend the shots for everybody doing this, going out every weekend. Like, it was just like kind of went wild, right? Money makes us do some really different things. And then I just literally woke up one day, I would have to say in probably about 2018, 2019 is when I really started to change my life around. So pretty recent, honestly. I quit doing drugs. I took a break from drinking for quite some time because I felt that that was a huge piece of it, a huge gateway. I removed a lot of toxic friends. I prayed a lot, journaled a lot, meditated, started doing things that I didn't used to do before because I'm like, who am I?